Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And my name is Martha. I'm one of the team leads for PyData Ghana. I'll be your host and moderator together with Eva Mwangi. And we are really excited to have everyone here today to what we have termed as the PyData Ghana Discourse. So this is where we have conversations and discussions about everything AI, ML, data science. And this particular session, which is based on the theme AI in Ghana, where we are now and what we can do better, seeks to explore the current state of emerging technologies and specifically in the fields of AI and ML here in Ghana, and how we can also carve a possible future that appreciates these integrations and adaptations of these technologies as a society. So I want to introduce my panelists. Today, we have with us three great panelists who have been working in the field of AI and machine learning over the years, and they are here to answer most of the pressing questions that we have. So the first panelist I'm going to introduce is Winifred Kotin, and Winifred is passionate about expanding the economic opportunities through the power of data. She's the co-founder and chief operating officer of Superfluids Lab. She's been working so much in the fields of AI, and one of the few Ghanaian women who actually inspire me personally. So our next speaker or our next panelist is Professor Taylor, who is also the founder and lead consultant for the Regtheory, which is a cybersecurity consultancy and training firm based in Accra, Amsterdam, and Chicago. So we know she has so much experience. She has over 18 years plus of experience, if I'm right, as a technologist and academic. So we know she's in to answer all the questions we have in a very, very educational point of view, as well as a technologist. We finally have the only male in our midst, who is in the person of Darlington Akogo, who he is the CEO of Gudra, and he's also the founder and CEO at minoHealth AI Labs. He's been working so much, especially in the fields of agriculture, health in Ghana. And as we know, agriculture is something that is driving the backbone or the economy of Ghana. So he's been working tirelessly in this field using AI to help us in our agricultural field. So without wasting so much time, these are the three panelists we'll be working with today, and I'm excited to have them here because the discussions are going to be very, very great. I'll pass it on to our panelists. So they would give us more information about themselves. So they tell us about what they do, their expertise in the field of AI, and then we can take it up from there. So over to our panelists. I'll start with Darlington. Darlington, can you please give us more information about what you do, since we would like to know more about your background, your expertise, and what you do actually in the field of AI and ML.
Sure, Martha. Thanks for the introduction and putting this together. So yes, the name is Darlington Akogo, founder of minoHealth AI Labs. So what we primarily do at minoHealth is focus on artificial intelligence in healthcare. So we have a number of initiatives along that line. We focus on AI for radiology. We have a project with ITU and WHO where we work on developing global standards and regulations for AI for radiology. So I serve as the chair of that initiative. We also have projects with Imperial College London, Oxford University, and a number of health facilities also, both in Ghana, Africa, and then internationally. So the goal is to develop solutions that provide access to healthcare and also research new solutions, new potential angles that AI in healthcare could go, not just in Ghana, but also globally. Then also we have KaraAgro AI, where we focus on developing AI for agriculture solutions. So collectively, these are precision agriculture solutions. We combine AI and drone technology. We have an app, we have a drone system. We work with a number of stakeholders, from farmers to plant breeders, to agricultural science institutions to be able to then provide solutions that help towards achieving food security. We also have Runmila AI Institute, where we train young people when it comes to AI and data science. So we've been doing a number of training programs, both in Ghana, and then recently we had one cohort also in Nigeria. So yeah, to sum up, that is basically what I do: develop AI solutions, but I also work on policy regulations and then standards and then research, both in Ghana and then internationally. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Darlington. That was really a great profile. I mean, I'm impressed the work you're doing in the fields of AI and ML in Ghana, and kudos to you. I'd open the floor for Winifred to also introduce herself to us.
Hello everyone, and good morning to those in Accra, and hello to everyone else in the other time zones. So I'm Winifred Kotin, and like Martha said, I'm very excited to be here, especially as we discuss AI and AI in Ghana, because there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of prospects, and it's so aligned to what we do at Superfluids Labs. So at Superfluids Labs, what we do, our mission is to expand economic opportunities using data and AI, and more specifically to help businesses and enterprises make intelligent decisions, make data-driven decisions for profit by leveraging emerging technologies, data, and AI. So data as a very valuable resource, and artificial intelligence and analytics as tools to achieve scale and to achieve a lot of profitable growth. Because when we look around the world, a lot of industries that are really thriving are powered by data and artificial intelligence. So this is very, very key to us, because we believe that we shouldn't be left behind as Africans and also as Ghanaians. Whatever goes on, fortunately for us, technology is not one of the industries that needs a lot of advanced capital requirements to be successful. So whatever we have working in other aspects of the world, we believe we can deliver the same kind of capabilities and leverage them for expansion of economic opportunities, and that's where our interest is in. And we do this by providing technologies and capabilities to help businesses make intelligent customer decisions so that they can expand access. I'm sure, as we all know, access to a lot of key drivers of the economy still remains lacking for millions of people in Africa. For instance, energy access is one interesting area where we have over 600 million Africans who still do not have access to energy. We are all able to do this morning because we can power our devices, and then our connected devices are also powered by energy, and that is not possible for a lot of other Africans. So what we do is really to expand economic opportunities, and we do this by driving other businesses that are delivering very innovative solutions across the whole of Africa. So we serve clients in multiple industries, in agriculture, in energy, in financial services, in agriculture, in healthcare, in technology, mostly around technology companies, because they are digitizing fast, and we have a lot of actors who are using technology as the main driver to unlock opportunities for the market. And one key area that is also very dear to us when it comes to access, because money becomes a barrier to access to credit or fair appraisal for credits is very key to driving access, because if we really want to monetize and take a cash and carry system like we have it in Ghana, it becomes a barrier to accessing a lot of opportunities. So what we've done over the years, over the past 5 years, is to help build credit scoring technologies using emerging data. And that's fortunately because of COVID. We're talking about COVID and its implications recently. Because of COVID, there's a lot of digitization going on there's a lot of payments by digital technologies, and this is driving a lot of valuable data points to help businesses who desire to serve the underserved in our continent, and especially also in Ghana, to be able to take advantage of the data points to deliver services and products based on historical behaviors from data. And we find this very exciting. We've done this across multiple use cases, including very interesting use cases like valuation of art pieces for budding or up and coming talent. We've done this to power access to mobile phones. Mobile phones are really key. A lot of us mobile devices, and for a lot of people in Africa, a mobile phone is going to be the only computer they would ever use. So driving access to a lot of these tools for us, we find it really exciting. And for us, we are more into application of these advanced technologies, just beyond just knowing and having the capabilities, but we want to see how it works and it translates to actual transformation for a lot of us in the population. So I'm very excited to be part of this session today and looking forward to a great time.
Yeah, thanks, Winifred. I'm very excited to have you as well, because I think with what you said about your profile, actually you really have the experience now working with more Ghanaians, or let me say more Ghanaian related data sets, which is going to make this conversation even better, because we are actually looking for people on the ground who are actually making an impact, and then can also drive us to the actual problems if we're facing, and then what we can do to make it better. So I'm glad to have you here as well. So thanks for the introduction. Last but not least, we have Professor Taylor to give us an introduction about herself and what she does in the field of AI and ML.
Thank you so much for having me. Can you all hear me okay? Yes, okay, fantastic. I appreciate being invited to this panel. Thank you guys for joining, and the audience out there in the world of the internets. Welcome very much. My name is Professor Taylor. I obviously am coming from the US. My background is in computer science, where I started my career at IBM, worked for a few years, and then started teaching at the undergraduate level as a professor, associate, assistant associate, and then went all the way up to the dean's level. After that, I decided to go to Europe and work at a startup in Germany with APIs, dealing with API security. And APIs that take payment for fintechs and financial institutions like banks. And then I decided that I wanted to come to Ghana permanently. So I started a business prior to coming to Ghana called Regtheory, and Regtheory is a cybersecurity and API training firm. And we assist organizations with their API security development and training. Majority of my business is done in Europe, but I'm trying to get a foothold here in Accra. Technology here, it has a little ways to go. So it's interesting being here, and it's always very, very interesting trying to get a hold of actual good, solid data that can be used for machine learning, that can then in turn be used for the type of training that we offer to our clientele that is powered by AI. So that's all I have for you for the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to hear that, and it's something that we are going to discuss too, on some of the things that we should improve on and some of the challenges that we are having. And I'm glad that all of you have experience in Ghana, but you also have a global outlook and experience working in different continents and with different companies of different sizes, from startup to IBM. It's really impressive. So my next question, our next question will be where we are now. We would like to understand, as Ghana, as data science in Ghana, where we are versus where the world is, and preferably using the examples that you are experiencing or you're working on day in, day out in your businesses, or even in your different encounters. how can we, or how can you explain to us where we are versus the world, or versus the future of AI and data science? I would also start with you, Darlington, Akogo.
Yeah, as far as where Ghana is, so on some level, the answer we are given is yeah, it's based on maybe experience and everything. It's maybe qualitative as opposed to quantitative. Like if this was coming from an actual study that we conducted, then it would be easy to just cite numbers. We have this, and then a ranking. There's attempt to do AI readiness, AI government readiness index, and all those stuff. But from a qualitative assessment, what I would say is that I think Ghana has come quite far than it looked like it would just a few years ago. So what I mean by this is that we started minoHealth in 2016. And I remember very clearly in 2017, when we started engaging different institutions, different stakeholders, AI was almost non-existent. No one even mentioned it. If you mention it, people ask you, why would you want to bring AI? People even made jokes that you are talking about artificial intelligence. We don't even have natural intelligence, which is a funny but very bad joke. So yeah, just looking at from 2017 to today, 2021, if we look at it from different sectors, the startups, we have quite, even though a few, maybe less than 10, but promising AI startups in Ghana. If we look at education, we have a number of training programs that have been around for a few years. Even PyData has been doing a number of activities. I remember initially, this was, I think, doing a program, I've forgotten the name of the university, but somewhere in Weja. So many training programs. We have Runmila AI Institute. And then if you look at even education, we have the first AI bachelor's program on the continent. If not the first, definitely one of the first. With Academic City, minoHealth was one of the partners for working with the education board to get that program running. And then if you look at governance, we've had data protection law since 2012. One of the earliest, if you even look at the GDPR, which is European Union's data protection laws, it came in after Ghana's data protection law. So we had ours before theirs. We had a very modern one. If you look at just policies to as well, currently UN Global Pulse is working with the Ministry of Communication as well as Data Protection Commission to develop ethical AI framework for Ghana. And already there's conversations, there's an open call to then create AI policy working with GIZ government. So this is in 2021. And just a few years ago, there was nothing. So I've seen with my own eyes, to my very surprise, how much a lot of growth has occurred in such a short period. So I think that shows the power of also exponential growth, because initially, I remember when we had one of the first AI events, this was, I think, in 2018. This was at Vida Cafe. And when we had it, before then was another program somewhere in East Legon. We got very few people. It was about AI and people did not know what it was. They were not interested. But today, there are so many AI programs. Sure, today being Saturday, apart from ours, there's probably some other AI program going on in Ghana. So from experience, I've seen a lot of growth. And if you put it in context, Ghana is definitely among the top 5 African countries when it comes to AI. And globally, there's a lot of noise being made in Europe and America, but I would say from experience, when you visit some of these countries, they are not really where they claim to be. It's really not that vastly different.
So thank you so much for that, Darlington, Akogo, because I haven't traveled that much, and so I am actually receiving the noise, and to some extent, hopeless that we are not making the right moves, but hearing from you that there is groundwork being done to create protection laws. And we are also investing in training. And you yourself, you're involved in making sure that we get this correctly in terms of health and radiology. It makes me hopeful that we are growing. And the fact that you can also see exponential growth, it gets me excited to actually get into this field and do much, much more. So Winifred, Kotin, what about you? What do you think? Where do you think we are? And how does that compare to the work you're doing?
Thank you, Eva. So I think generally I'll say we are making progress, definitely not static. We've been around for a while now, almost similar to Darlington's in terms of trying to get the markets and both public and private sector to take advantage of AI. And from my perspective, what I would say is if you want to judge where we are now, let's take it back and look at what are the components that we require to fully take advantage of AI. So we have policy as number one. Usually policy helps drive adoption of everything. Whenever there's policy, everyone adapts. So we have policy related, from the policy related angle, and I know there's a lot of good work being done to build the necessary infrastructure and knowledge. So for instance, the Ghana card and the digital address systems are going to be really, really instrumental in the scaling of and adoption of artificial intelligence and AI, because a lot of data points are going to be captured through these two systems and make it possible for use across a number of facets areas within the economy. So I think from that angle, we see some moves being done, which is really commendable. I know there's a lot of work going on by various stakeholders and interest groups around driving the needed policy at various areas to make it possible to get a policy angle. So I think that is fantastic. The other three components I would like to dwell on is the data, the talent, and the expertise. Now, when we come to the data, largely we have a lot of data is not a challenge. The problem is whether it's digitized and it's in the format we can use. So I'm really excited when I heard Madam Taylor, if I can call you that, talk about APIs, because some time back we had those conversations and we said that what if it was possible that the government sector, the ministries had APIs or the data they have currently available, and that was exposed to the markets. There's a lot of interest in data, so there are a lot of budding data scientists, data enthusiasts who are coming up. There's a lot of training going on. How do we get access to data to train? How do we get access to data to attempt to solve a lot of the challenges and then apply the knowledge we are gaining in the classrooms and through training programs? If it was possible, we had this a lot of APIs available, a lot of sandboxes we could just take advantage of and start practicing some of these things. It would really go a long way to drive the growth of AI adoption in Ghana. And then when we look at expertise and talents, I think that's going on very fantastically well. There's a lot of interest now. A lot of individuals through their personal initiatives are looking to get training. There's a lot of training institutions like what is run by Darlington's outfits and some of the universities and some of the other training bodies. And one thing we do at Superfluids Labs is that we also provide training, but we do reskilling for existing talents in enterprises. So because before they can buy our solutions, if they don't understand, they cannot embrace it. If they don't understand, they cannot even make decisions to purchase. So we found that we had to do reskilling, and we do a lot of training for enterprises to build their capacity, understanding, and awareness, and an appreciation of data and AI so that they can make better decisions and then they can adapt the technologies which we offer to scale and expand opportunities. And then the other angle of market acceptance, like I mentioned, if the market is not ready, as an actor in the ecosystems, it's really difficult for you, because if you don't have policy driving, you don't have market ready, it makes a lot of things very, very difficult. So the data, the talents, the market readiness, I think the market readiness is going to expand with COVID, because a lot of businesses digitize. Even for the first time, there's still a lot of businesses that are struggling to digitize different areas of service provision, but we've seen massive digitization going on in Ghana in the past 5 years, and it has been accelerated by COVID. And we know the next question is going to be, what are we going to do with all of this growth in data? What are we going to do? What decisions can we use the data to make? How can we improve and optimize on operations and efficiency, customer management, service delivery, and then how can we be more profitable? And data, the question of the role of data and AI is going to come up in the markets, which is going to be really good for all of us in the ecosystem. And the other thing is, I like events such as the valuable work being done by PyData Ghana. Why? Because awareness creation is really, really instrumental. If people cannot embrace what they don't do, and Darlington said something very funny, that where are we even with the normal intelligence, and we are speaking about artificial intelligence. So all of these efforts and activities being done by the various stakeholders within the ecosystem is very, very key and instrumental in the progress we are making. So I think for us as a country, we are not doing badly. There's a lot of work that can be done and should be done. And I think we are on the right track.
Thank you so much. That's really encouraging. And I also remembered as you were talking about, there's something you mentioned before we started the webinar, and you talked about your experience with COVID, where you said the things that you used to spend so much time encouraging people to do in terms of moving to using technology and getting all this data, now they do it and they're actually looking for it. And so the connection is very clear that the next move will be making use of that data. Now they are aggressively collecting or giving us, and so that we can make better decision or better use of our data at the moment. And I also like that the part you mentioned about training corporates, which is also advocating for machine learning and use of data, which is very strong, especially where you also brought in the government, because we know that once they are involved, now the growth becomes even more exponential. And for us who are really interested and enthusiastic about this field, we will definitely see this growing and be very inspired. So Professor Taylor, where do you think we are, and how does it look from your line of work?
Okay, I think everything that the panelists said is fantastic. I think that having the opportunity to have worked on several continents and now being here in Ghana, I think it's important for people to understand that it's essential for folks in tech here in the region to be creators of technology versus just users, and that's what's happening. At the same time, though, many want to copy what they see in the West, which is not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is take that technology that's either freely available or available at a very low cost and create something that's uniquely African, that's uniquely designed to solve problems in this region. Doing the copy and paste thing doesn't last long over time. And I see that a lot here, and it's very strange to me when I see it. At the same time, there are many who are doing their own thing and leapfrogging in a way that they're using the technology in a different way. AI has been around for a very long time. The AI in its new iteration, where you're able to take on large data sets, working with ML, you're able to use these large data sets. AI is able to do things within seconds versus hours. That's all new. But AI itself has been around forever. I mean, to me anyway, it's been around before I even started, and I've been doing this now for 20 years, not 18, but for 20 years at this point. And so for me, the biggest challenge about being here in Ghana as someone who's been in tech for quite some time is, one, trying to understand the hesitancy and or the fear of new thought and new technology coming into, let's say, the public sector and the private sector. Public sectors are always reluctant to embrace technology. That's true the world over. But here in Ghana, it's even harder to get in with the private sector because it seems to be very, not an old boys club, but like cliquish. If you're not part of the clique and you haven't went to school with people growing up, then you're not as welcomed into the clique. Do not hate me, panelists. Please don't be mad at me. I'm just sharing my own experience. The problem with that is when you have someone coming with experience that they want to share, with ideas they want to collaborate with, how do you do that if there's no open doors? And so that's my question there. And then there was a discussion talking about being able to pull the data that's coming from the Ghana card, the data that came from, I think it was the voter registration. I'm not sure if that's part of the Ghana card too, because there's a lot of data points being collected here. And my question is, who has that data? If a third-party organization is holding on to your data, and when I say your data, I mean Ghana's data, then you don't have the ability to use that data in the way you should be able to use that data. And so that is a concern, but I may not know. So I'm just kind of asking the question back at you guys if you do know. But having access to your national data in which you can take that data and use in various ways in various industries to create services and products and things that can be useful in a Ghanaian context, or even so in the African context, especially now with the African Continental Free Trade Area. You can find a way to use things that can go beyond the borders of Ghana, right? Using AI in particular, especially for the customer experience, for training and learning, teaching and learning, all these different ways, all these different things. As far as APIs are concerned, APIs are, I love APIs because they're so much fun, right? They're just like little boxes. You just click them together and they work. No, it's like, no, they don't. But they're supposed to work like that. They're supposed to be easy to use, quickly be able to get things done. And in theory, they do work that way, but it takes a whole team of people behind the scenes and make sure those APIs are working with, let's say, a private financial institution or a public government entity that deals with like payroll is able to secure that data in transit or at rest, right? So being able to do these things with the APIs are essential in making sure that they're secure. I think you can totally do that here in Ghana. Absolutely, for sure. You can do that, quite frankly, with a small team, like 2-3 people, as long as they know how to code correctly. You can do it and have some extraordinary APIs, but the APIs mean nothing if the organizations will not allow you to use them. If they don't have sandboxes in place to allow you to be able to connect and see what's happening. And that's where I say, like, there's this pulling of teeth almost trying to get the public sector to embrace technology, especially technology that's considered emerging or new. But can that happen here? Of course it can happen. The Bank of Ghana has a sandbox right now that they're using for fintech. So there's different ways that you can do this and make it adaptable for people and profitable, because at the end of the day, it's all about profits. Whatever you're doing, can you make a profit from it, right? And of course you can. I do want to address training, education, just really quickly. I have met CIOs, CTOs, CEOs, head of infrastructure, head of cybersecurity experts, all these people with these fancy titles. But when you really start breaking down technology and really working and talking through it, you start to realize there's some serious disconnect. And some of these people teach And then some of the teachers teaching at the university have never done anything outside of their academic job. All you're learning is theory. Theory doesn't help someone like me as an employer be able to work with the technology that I have. I'd rather do it myself than bring on someone that I have to actually teach the basics to that should have learned this in college. So, I mean, I know this might sound a little bit, I don't know, it might sound something different, but that's important to know. Who is training? Who is teaching the young adults this knowledge, and is it actionable? Can they take that and build something on their own with it? Because you should be able to take what you learn and build something on your own, even if it's just a little simple chatbot, whatever. You should be able to take something and build it on your own to have something to show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Taylor. I was really excited when you were speaking, because looks like all three panelists in their line of discussions had certain things in common, and I just wanted to touch on it before we even move on to what we can do better here in Ghana. When we're all speaking, I realized that the aspect of AI readiness kept like resonating in everyone's speech, and just as Professor Taylor said, is it that there is the fear of new technology in the public sector or in some parts of the private sector? How are we utilizing our data, and so on and so forth? I think Winifred also made a point about having data, talent, and expertise. I feel that is one of the main things that usually, should I say, inhibits the growth of AI here in Ghana. But I just want to find out from your point of view, because you all just touched briefly on the AI readiness in Ghana. For instance, even with the experience in trying to get an AI educational program for one of the universities, as Darlington said, academic CT, how do we really see the readiness of Ghana? Is Ghana actually ready to embrace AI technologies? Because we are already using it, but what is the level of readiness as compared to the outside world? Yes, the outside world or the Western people think they are utilizing AI more, but yeah, we are all utilizing more, should I say, of the narrow intelligence other than the general intelligence. So we all, in some way or the other, are using it. So we are not far back. But then how do we see Ghana's readiness in terms of AI? How are we responding to it? Is there an ability that Ghana is going to quickly adapt to the changes? Because going on, like in some years to come, by 2035, there's going to be like a huge, should I say, massive invasion of AI within our communities. Is Ghana ready for that? And what is the state of readiness as far as the individual works are concerned? So I think I'll start first with Professor Taylor, and then we can move on to Darlington and Winifred, so that they share from their perspective of actually working with talent, or actually working on the ground with us. So yeah, Professor Taylor, you can go on from there.
Okay, if my connection kind of breaks up, please forgive me, everyone. It happens from time to time. Okay, thank you. So I feel that the comparison to the West should not happen, because there's too much, there's too many innovative ideas and too many innovative people right here in Ghana right now doing extraordinary things that's going to surpass what's in the West, period, because it's solving a problem that's right here locally. And that problem will probably be able to be solved beyond Ghana's borders on the continent and beyond. At the same time, when we talk about embracing AI, I just want to talk quickly about cloud computing, right? Because I'm big on cloud computing, and most AI programs you work with, especially free ones, are connected in some way to Google Cloud or AWS or one of the others, right? And so I found that not just here in Ghana, but very much in Germany, they were extremely resistant to moving to the cloud. Even hybrid cloud, where you had part of the information housed locally somewhere in a data farm that you have on site, right? And then the rest is going to be in a virtual environment. extremely hesitant to that. It wasn't until right before the pandemic where more and more people started to do it. And that's just because of the drive and push that these large companies put out to train and educate and to be able to provide the services free or almost free. I see that drive happening here in West Africa, in Nigeria, and here in Ghana, slowly but surely by some of these large companies. And I'm saying it like that because it does kind of matter in the ability to use the technology in a way that's unique, but actually just get your hands on the technology and be able to use it. And I also want to make that comparison because sometimes people think, oh, because, you know, we're here in Africa, it takes us longer to get something. No, that's not the case. If you were in Germany, you would just be like, what is this? We bypassed this. If you see mobile money, hello, somebody talk to me. Like that's not the case, right? And so that's why I love being here in Ghana. Being part of this panel is fun because I've never seen so many women on the tech panel. Hallelujah. Hopefully I can talk to you ladies afterwards and gentlemen after this panel, but it's a beautiful thing. As far as being able to catch up with education, I just feel like this one is challenging because you have so many, forgive the term, old heads, or elders who are working in academia, who are working in silos. It's hard to create a program if you're not working directly with private sector, understanding the needs that they want and need for new employees, new graduates. Now, Darlington, I believe that was your name, please forgive me if I got it wrong, talked about his company providing advice and guidance to the university about the program. That is fantastic. But I think that, and I don't know, maybe this happened, so if it did, please correct me. But I know for a fact, coming out of academia and being at the dean's level where I created programs and partnered with the private sector all the time on everything to make sure our graduates had jobs, it is essential for academics to understand and learn how private sector is using some of this technology so that they can then turn around and teach it. Because you can only say so much for a book, but if you can't pull up a shell and start coding something and start showing them something practical, you don't even have to be fancy with it, just show the basics and explain what's happening. Let the students do the rest. Because when you allow students to really think on their own and not tell them exactly how to do it, but say you can code in a way that can solve a problem and everything shouldn't be identical. This is what I would tell people. If your code is identical to your classmates, that means you cheated because you should be writing this code in your own unique way. That's the beauty of programming. Just saying, like I'm old school, like I program C++. Y'all probably like, oh my God, what? Yeah, totally ancient, I know it. But the theory is the same, right? And so I don't see that here in Ghana because I have tried to, this is for cybersecurity, not for AI, volunteer my services at universities just to teach a topic or assist faculty at 3 universities in Accra, 2 in other regions. That did not go over well. So I don't know how this works if you have faculty who do not know how to use the technology, are not publishing research about the technology. And even though they may say they're experts in the field, if you don't see anything that's in writing showing published works that you are experts in the field and you actually can do the work, well then to me there's a problem with that. Forgive me again, I am an academic, so this is why I'm talking in this way. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Taylor. Darlington, I think you take it up from here because some of the comments were directed towards your course as well. So you could take it up from here.
Yeah, no, I think Kayla, I don't think a lot of the points were directed at what we were doing personally. I think she was speaking in general, which is okay. Yeah, as far as readiness, as I mentioned earlier, I think Ghana has come quite a long way. And I'm actually impressed by it. But if we are talking about readiness for adoption, right, it varies from sector to sector. So just before the session started, we were having this discussion just among ourselves. Winifred was telling us about the banking sector, how things have changed and everything. The banking sector in Ghana is entirely different from the health sector in Ghana, which is entirely different from the agriculture sector in Ghana. One key example would be when we started minoHealth and we wanted to work with the health facilities in Ghana. It took us a long while to even win over their trust, to get access to any sort of data, to even see the data. It took us a long while. But then when we started KaraAgro and we wanted to get data and then do pilot or just deploy our system, it was very easy. I mean, all you need is you head to a farm and then you go do whatever you want to do. If you literally find a farm near you and you walk into it and you politely ask the farmer that, oh, I have this system and I'm trying to grab some images and do something, is that fine with you? They'll give you the go ahead. You don't get that in healthcare. So when we speak of readiness, yeah, we can take certain things collectively, which are attempted to do, startups, government, academia, education policy. But then if we look at adoption, we start going to sectors, it varies completely. The issues that might exist as far as hesitance towards adopting AI technology in specific sectors, the honest truth is that those issues exist far beyond AI. So one of the key things, especially when you're dealing with the public sector, if you're dealing with government, there's a lot of bureaucracy and red taping. Dealing with government generally around the world, as Khallai mentioned, is a tough battle. But then if you realize what happens is that each country, each continent, each region has its own culture, especially when it comes to government. So there's a government culture, there's a way things happen. If you come to Africa, if you take just Ghana and Togo, there's a vast difference between what it means to work with government and how to successfully do that. So there's a learning period. I remember, so when I mentioned we started minoHealth and everything, the part I also didn't mention was that, I mean, I am Ghanaian, but then I moved out of Ghana and lived in Europe for years. So when we started minoHealth, I moved back to Ghana and I moved back with so much passion. And then I went everywhere, walked to the Ministry of Health in my basketball shirt and shorts, because boga. And then I went in there and then I was like, hey, we need to sort of deploy AI for health solutions and everything. And then look for media outlets and be like, no, this and this. I realized I was actually alienating myself. So they looked at me and I had dreadlocks back then, which I don't, it's great to have dreadlocks. It's nice. But then one of the few things that was tough for me was having to let go of my dreadlocks but anyway, that is another story on its own. But the point was that I wasn't aware of how to engage the stakeholders. And so I was trying to use my way and they totally pushed me out. So it took years of understanding how they do their things. It doesn't mean that you have to forcefully just play by that system, because if you play by the system too well, then you become the status quo and then nothing ever changes. So yeah, once you learn how to work with them, and it requires a whole lot of grit and perseverance. I can tell you this year, we've been working on a project with we got funding from Lacuna. Maybe I'll talk about this a bit more later, but we got funding from Lacuna to then collect data in agriculture. So we are doing this across 4 African countries. So Ghana, Uganda, Tanzania, and then Namibia. And in Ghana, we are working with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. We are working with the University of Ghana. So in Ghana, the team that we have alone is about 40 people across private sector, government, and academia. So we are doing everything, collecting data. We have pathologists. We are working across all 16 regions. When I say this, it sounds nice, but if I have to go into details of some of the challenges we've had along the way and just dealing with how the system works and dealing with certain agencies and all that stuff, but I can tell you for a fact that a few years ago, this wouldn't have been possible. But it's possible now because there's that readiness, but also because we as the developers have also learned how they do some of the stuff. And this very year has been a strong learning curve of learning how to engage government in Ghana. Yeah, so it's not an easy battle, but it's not a hopeless battle either. That is what I would say as far as the readiness across various sectors. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that at least from the industry point of view, you are trying to adapt to suit all the should I say stakeholders, and not to say you are compromising too much, but so that we can all have like a peaceful coexistence in terms of AI, so we can easily implement what we have. I'm glad to hear that, although it hasn't been easy for most of you actually starting companies in this field, because you know, Ghana takes some time, but kudos and all the best also in the future endeavors, because we'd like to see your institution grow more and then have more talents from our communities as well. So thanks for that. Winifred, would like to hear from you finally on that before we move on.
I think just to add on to what has been said, I believe we are making progress. But when it comes to the question of readiness to accept and then also to adapt, I think that's, we are really taking baby steps in that regard. It's been, from our angle, we work with the private sector, and what we noticed was that there were, of course, systemic challenges in how decision making and changes is implemented, which had an effect on us because if we are introducing something new, it means that something may have to give way for the new thing to happen. And in cases where there's a limited understanding of the value that is to be achieved, a lot of the time it's been quite difficult to break through. And we found a lot more successes with smaller enterprises than with larger enterprises. And it's been very interesting learnings for us. And we've also had to adjust a lot of things. We've had to adapt, we've had to pivot a lot of things just to remain sustainable. Because if the awareness is not there, even though we are here today, there's a lot of fantastic work going on. If you were randomly to poll the market, poll people, poll individuals and stakeholders at various institutions and ask them, do you know about artificial intelligence? Do you know about data? Mention any industry that you know of globally that is doing fantastically well because they are taking advantage of data and AI. What will the results be? That would be a very good reflection of where we are. Because as long as stakeholders do not understand, they would not be able to take advantage of it. And from the private sector angle, the private sector is really the engine of growth in a lot of economies. And if the willingness to accept and adapt and use this fantastic tool to achieve a lot of profitable growth is still absent, or they are really slow in accepting, then it makes it more challenging for all of us. One of the ways what we've always told those who are struggling to accept or evaluate whether this is even useful to them is we start with some pilots. Let's do some pilots and then see the effects or the benefits. And then fortunately, we are dealing with data here. Let's measure the results and then see whether it is something that has an impact. And then how can we now take what we've learned and expand it to the whole? So I think in terms of readiness, we would have to go through the approach is what we need to really be looking at. For instance, not too long ago, we had people come in to set up the AI research lab in Ghana. What does that mean? Afterwards, what is going on? How is that translating to the states? Is the state participating in that? Are we curious to learn about how we can take advantage of that infrastructure and that resource as a nation to increase the progress we are making? All of these things are very fantastic questions, but I think that for me, as long as people think that AI means some deadly tool or something they still cannot easily embrace, they do not see all the big opportunities that are available the ability to scale so many things, then we're going to have to travel a long way to be able to realize the benefits we are looking at. But I think there's increasingly post-COVID, there's a lot of change in mindsets that are going on, and I think this should have an impact on all of us.
Thank you so much. I've learned so much, and time is also going really fast. But I really appreciate all the points that you have raised, and I hope also the attendees and the audience is really taking notes on this. And we are really interested to know what we can do better, specifically when it comes to questions about data acquisition, data collection, data privacy. How can we improve the culture of data acquisition or data collection and sharing too in Ghana? We can start with Professor Taylor. You're on mute.
Okay, I'm going to ask for you to repeat that question one more time, please.
Yes. So the question was what we can do better, and this is in relation on how we collect data and how we share data across ourselves, and also the thin line between collecting, sharing, and privacy violation, and protecting ourselves and our data.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I know there's the data protection law. I sat on one of those working groups talking about the data privacy for that. Okay, so what's interesting in Ghana is that I haven't seen, not that there isn't, but I haven't seen enforcement of any violation of data. So if you have a regulating body that does not enforce, then why would any institution or organization or enterprise, business, whatever name we want to put on it, report any type of data breach and or the actual data they're really collecting? So, I think that the initiatives Ghana has in place are fantastic, but the follow through and enforcement has to be there to hold others accountable. The collecting of data, data is king. I mean, data, who holds the data holds the power. Look at Facebook. Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram went down all in the same day, and the world lost this collective mind. Okay, that tells you the power that data has. To me, allowing for third-party entities, non-Ghanaian owned companies to hold on and own the data of the people of Ghana or any other protective data of that sort does a disservice to the nation, because the organizations, the companies, the entrepreneurs like those on this panel need that data to provide innovative services to the country, to the people, to their business partners in order to be most effective. So I just honestly believe there needs to be some regulation enforcement. But until that time comes, we can have this nice talk on different panels from different organizations that the data laws are there, the data privacy is there, the data protection is there. But unless there's some enforcement and we take out this fluff that seems to be around it, like the registration, if you have a company, you're collecting data, you need to register. Okay, but who enforces if you don't? Just my question. I'm just curious about that. So these are the kind of things that people need to be on the lookout for, and you should always be protecting your own personal data. But at the end of the day, when you work with APIs people, please make sure you're using secure code to protect your APIs. Just saying, protect that data as well. That's all I got to say about that. Thank you so much.
Very thought-provoking question there. I appreciate that. And also taking care of the data, our personal data, and protecting our APIs. Winifred, Kotin, what do you think about data collection, privacy, and data sharing?
Okay, that's thanks for that, Eva. And that's a very interesting question and very key, especially for AI adoption and use. Because if people do not trust what we can do or we will do with the data and the ethics around that, then it's even more difficult for people to open up and share. But that being said, I always love when the question of privacy and data protection comes in. So for instance, Darlington mentioned that when he started, if you walk to, let's say, hospital and you request, you want to use data belonging to the hospital for their good, it's tougher. But if you wanted to collect your own data, take some images of agricultural farms, it would be easier. But the interesting thing is that we all leave very, very valuable data everywhere, and it is not a problem. I say this because walk to any commercial building in mostly in Accra and in Ghana, they would ask you for very key personal details. They ask you for your name, your contact details, who are you coming to see. We take it for granted, but that's a lot of valuable data, and these books are just informed that everyone else who works in the building sees that, oh, okay, Martha came to so-and-so building and wanted to see this person at this time. What does that mean? Okay, what does that mean? Is there any agreement signed with the institution or the property owner or whoever is collecting that? What do they do afterwards? That's a lot of very valuable information. So before we even begin to think about, oh, how are we collecting data? Is it permissive? We are already giving up data. So if someone comes in and says that to solve a specific problem A or B, we want to, for you, so or collectively, we are collecting data for this purpose, begin to fight them or to hesitate. Just ask, where else have you left your data unattended? Okay, without knowing what it's being used for. In this particular case, you actually know the outcomes that are going to be achieved from the data you are giving up. So I think when it comes to making data available, we should not be hesitant as long as we follow the rules, the processes, and we understand and both parties are okay to share, then we can go on and make data available and accessible. And then the responsible use of data. When it comes to responsible use of data, I think that's one we still have a long way to go, because we actually collect a lot of data we don't need. One interesting thing I've always said is whenever people bring a questionnaire or you need to complete some responses and you look at the questions, you look at the form, you ask yourself, this specific question that I'm being asked, what is the purpose? What is the purpose for they asking me this question? What is my grandma's maiden name? What are we trying to establish here? So there's a lot of questions. When it comes to data, we need to be able to understand the purpose for which the data is being collected. And then what are the safeguarding mechanisms? Do we inform people that we are going to use this data for the specific purpose? And this is our approach to securing the data. We are going to take steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to ensure the data is safe, is secure, and we are not going to do anything which is unethical with your data. And we are really going to use just specifically for what we've collected it. Those things are key. And usually when you present these things, it's easier for you to have access to data or to collect data for specific purposes. And I think one of the things we have done, which has given us a lot of success, is really working with the stakeholders whenever we engage with them to understand what their own security policies are around data and data governance, so that we can actually abide and adapt to what they have to reduce the barriers and the hesitations to access to data. And then also we make it clear the value that is to be derived from the use of data, which has helped to reduce the barriers. Because if they are hesitant and they do not know what you're using the data for, they are going to think that, oh, having access to data is a terrible thing and I don't want anybody to collect data. But I think a lot of awareness and education must be created, and the process for managing and securing that data must also be well communicated to facilitate data data protection, data security. And I think the Data Protection Agency is really doing some great work. And there's a lot of awareness that must be created and a lot of policy to guide data collection, management, and use to increase the confidence we have when it comes to data collection.
Thank you. I am for sure going to be looking out for how I share my data, because sometimes I'm asked for a copy of my ID, and I sometimes don't ask where that copy is going to live or why it's needed. So I'm going to also educate myself on how I share my data. Last but not least, Darlington, Akogo, what do you think about this topic?
Yeah, so when it comes to data collection, broadly acquisition, management, and privacy, I think a lot of points have been made on this, and I agree with most of them. So like Khallai said, enforcement is a huge issue in Ghana. So it's kind of the point I was making earlier, that some of the challenges we have as far as AI in Ghana, it's not really specific to AI. It's more of a root issue that we've had for years. And AI just unfortunately is affected or is seeing some of the effect of those root issues. So enforcement is definitely one of the key issues. Since I've become quite diplomatic, so I'm not going to mention the names of any institutions, but we've had incidents like one involving one telecom company, a very big one, where there was a data breach with them and then some international organization, right? It made the news very briefly, and then that was it. We never heard anything again. Then again, there was another data breach that involved a government agency, and then also it made the news for like a day or two, and that was it. No one cared or nothing else happened. Then there was even another major incident that involved allegedly Russian troll farms being built or established right within Ghana and within our campuses, so university campuses, where university students are being employed to then influence politics, elections, and then the racial divisions in the US. So I think, yeah, it was CNN. CNN did a mini documentary on this. They track the people, they identify them. So these people basically take advantage of social media platforms, their targeted marketing, and then just abuse social media platforms to then create division in the US. So we are talking about both along the political lines, but also racial lines as well. So when this happened, there was disbanded, the person sort of escaped and nothing really happened. So yes, Ghana's data protection laws came in 2012. European Union's GDPR came officially was implemented in 2018. But then the key difference is that GDPR has had a lot of people that face the consequence of breaching their data laws. So even the big institutions like Facebook, Google, they've been hit with a lot of fines. Google has paid hundreds of millions in fines. The question is that if institutions, both international and local, breach our laws, what do we do? So yes, there's a need for enforcement. Another even thing to ask ourselves is that when Facebook had that whole Cambridge Analytica issue, many do not know that African countries were among. Cambridge Analytica had clients in Africa. So the government worked with this institution to actually influence people, create division just to be able to win elections. So when Facebook had to go before Congress in the US, when they were called before the EU Parliament and everything, the question is that did Africa call Facebook to come and answer for what its role was in the Cambridge Analytica issue? What about the countries that had roles to play or work with Cambridge Analytica? Even now we are seeing in Ethiopia, there are already early feedback coming and showing that social media is influencing the crisis in Ethiopia. The question is that who, the stakeholders, who did they answer to? Do we follow through? So there's a lot of issue in that side. But then broadly, if we are talking about data, I would say what we need in Africa, what we need in Ghana is funding. We need funding. So both funding in the form of it coming from international development agencies, and also funding like VCs, equity investment. If you are a startup, if you're an organization, you want to collect data, there's an angle of willingness of participants and everything, but it costs a lot of money to collect data. The question is that who is going to give you that money? So if you go to existing institution, you ask them to give you data that they already have, then you run into issues of, do they trust you? Another issue you run into is whether they even store that data in the format like Winifred mentioned. So if we want to truly focus on data collection, funding becomes key. So currently Lacuna Fund has been doing a good job within the region. They've opened 3 separate calls. So they've done language, and then at least one consortium from Ghana won funding to collect data for language. They've just opened another one for agriculture. I mentioned that we were recipients this year. So we work with different partners across Africa to collect data. Then also they just opened one on healthcare some months ago. And then we have GIZ also within Ghana that is having a lot of initiatives for data collection. So to give some sort of context, if you try to collect data on your own without the right kind of funding, you might get some hundreds of samples at best, depending on also the sector. But then for the Lacuna project that we are implementing, we are collecting about 150,000 images across 4 different countries. This is going to be one of, if not the largest data set, especially when you're talking about disease and pest. Even the older data set that existed like Plant Village, ours is going to be larger. We wouldn't have been able to do this if not for the funding that came from Lacuna. So yeah, funding is really important. So we need a lot of stakeholders, international development agencies like like GIZ coming in to fund that, but also government also funding this. Government currently has the Open Data Initiative, but we need more funding to stakeholders to collect data to empower those platforms. And as far as, yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all very much for the insightful discussion so far. I think sometimes we Ghanaians, as Winifred rightly said, we don't even ask what our data is being used for before we even share it out there. And sometimes internally, we try to share data with people just probably for money also, because I remember when Darlington mentioned about the Russian troll farm. I remember a report by Guardian at that time said there was an organization, an NGO in Ghana, which was linked to actually sharing data with them to be able to actually create those fake accounts to use for their purposes. And in my mind, I was thinking, we are actually trying to protect the data we have here. Already, we don't even have a system that actually guides us as to who is responsible for the data, what repercussions are there for people who mishandle data. And there are still people within the Ghanaian society that are sharing data outrightly to these people. So it comes to the fact that there are not clear policies in place for us as a nation to guide us even in the use of AI. And you know, AI primarily drives on data. So if there are policies in place, we feel that is going to help. Some organizations have taken the step to actually help in creating, let's say, an ethical policy. I remember, I think a month or 2 months ago, if Winifred was there, GIZ Fair Forward organized a stakeholder consultative meeting to address that, and they are going to have more series of such events, which I think is great because it's going to help us in our quest to push AI forward in Ghana. But then I have my final question before we even move on to the question and answers. I want to know how like AI technologies can help policymakers such as institutions, because for instance, we have NITA, which holds, let's say, it's a data center for Ghana. And in as much as they are the data center, most people are skeptical about hosting their data there because of security and other privacy issues. So how can we leverage on AI technologies to like help policymakers address these open challenges and then also issues that arise as such by making effective decisions? So I'll first start with Darlington on this, and then we can move on just briefly, so because we're running out of time.
Sure. So when it comes to policy making, there's a whole space that is called data-driven policy making or evidence-based policy making. So that's where AI comes in. One key example, especially in the context of the pandemic, is what we call epidemiological modeling. So that's where you are trying to look at how pandemic, or in this case, how an infectious disease is just spreading. And then you model it, and based on that, you can make future projections. And then you run simulations to see, for example, okay, if we resume school, what happens? Does that increase the cases? How much does it increase the cases? If we stop flight for 1 more week, what will happen? So this sort of simulations, we need more of them. It would take some time before Ghanaian government probably adopts data-driven policy making on that level. But then already, even with the dashboards that we have with COVID-19 and everything, that is great. A good thing would be to take those dashboards and then start sort of applying it to the other fields too as well. So collect data and let it influence policy making. Policy should not be left to partisan politics or argument about individual takes on things. So yeah, it will take some time, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, so we well noted. It will take some time, but definitely we are positive that this would come to pass. Thank you very much, Darlington, for that. And Winifred, would like to know your thoughts on that as well.
I think data-driven policy is actually very interesting. It's a very interesting topic, and I have been speaking about this for a while now. One key area I would also like to look at, the focus would be from financial inclusion. There's a lot of financial services actors and players in the country who still serve just a portion of the market and not everyone else. And I believe access to finance and financial inclusion is a human right, and everyone should be able to participate and fully take advantage of what having access to finance means. And so there's insurance, there's pensions, there's loans, there's savings, there's payments. There are so many things that policy can drive to improve access to finance and then drive financial inclusion. And then also specializing the access to finance to specific needs of various geographies or various communities. So for instance, if we take a farming community in BA, that's what are the kind of farming practices they have? What are the crops or the yields that is expected from them? How can finance be directed to farmers in those localities so that they can be better able to increase production and then sell and make better decisions? So every aspect of the economy, agriculture, manufacturing, commodities, different aspects can all be affected or impacted for access to finance. And using policy to drive financial inclusion is one key area I think if we can do it to really move the economy forward and the markets forward.
Sure. Thank you very much, Winifred, for that submission. Last but not least, Professor Taylor, you could also let us know your views on policy decisions in Ghana. Yeah.
So Ghana recently did the census, and they collected a lot of information about the entire population of Ghana and all the regions, including education, attainment, and current employment. From that alone, you could use that data across all industries and sectors. But the question is, for me, why wait for the public sector, government in particular, to drive policy when maybe sometimes drive policy for data, when sometimes they don't understand exactly how that data could and should be used, and could be used in ways to solve future problems, not only current problems. And sometimes it's good for private sector entrepreneurs to drive that change by getting access to certain data and using it in different ways, positive ways, legal ways, of course, so that the public sector can then catch up. Not saying that that is perfect for Ghana, but it is a way in which it would allow for those with new ideas, new thoughts, and new ways of solving problems to do things quickly and fast. I do understand the limitation when it comes to funding and finances, but a lot of different services are free. And a lot of different services can be used if you reach out to organizations and ask to partner with them. They will give you a lot of storage for free, especially in this part of the world, for what you're doing. And that will get the attention of organizations who are in the public and the private sector. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much to our panelists. This has been a very, very interesting discussion, I must admit. I've learned a lot from each of our panelists because I also had my sort of perspectives of these questions, and bringing the industry experts on board has made it better. I hope all our attendees also learned a lot and are actually going to like improve upon their, should I say, work in the space of AI as far as Ghana is concerned. And would quickly want to run through the questions. We have 2 questions that have still pending, so we'd want to run through them so that you quickly help us with that. I think Kwejo Graham says, what are the very practical steps we can take as an ecosystem to advance the building of AI tools and the adoption of AI? And what is a good goal to set as an ecosystem to advance AI in Ghana? So any of our panelists can take this question for us.
I think I would like to give that a go. So one practical thing we can do as ecosystem actors is demystify AI and then drive the value created by AI a lot more. So that's one practical step. We can talk about it, we can share it. When this event is eventually broadcasted online or shared on other platforms, practical steps is you can share it, you can add your own comments, you can talk more so that people will start to have these conversations, and together we can embrace AI and the good it provides for us as a nation.
Sure. Thanks, Winifred. Kwejo Graham, I hope your question has been answered by Winifred. Our second question in there is AI affordable in Africa with respect to the high computing resources and internet data usage of AI entrepreneurs, developers, students, and for the end consumers? And how can this challenge be mitigated? I think for this question, Darlington, would you be able to, because you have worked so much in AI and you use like high resourced components for your work, so you could help us with that.
Yeah, I would say that's a very good question, by the way. I would say it varies from sector, use case, and application. So, for example, so with our drone system, right, if the cost involved is, so it's kind of mysterious how it happens, but for our drone system, the cost involved is much higher than on the per use case of our AI for health system with minoHealth. So the reason being that if you want to actually use the drone to detect diseases in a field, you have to physically carry the drone to one location. So we work on one project in the northern region in Yankpala. So to drive there is about 12 hours. So we had to take a flight. That in itself is one cost. So even though, yes, AI, you go fly drone tech and everything, there's a lot of logistic cost that is involved. So the stakeholder that we engaged, the clients that we engaged was plant breeders, and they could afford to cover the cost of all this. But if you are looking at the fact that about 80% of our food comes from small scale farmers, small-scale farmers cannot really afford for us to move drones to different regions and all that stuff. They cannot. We have an app which is easy and is free and all that stuff, but when it comes to the drone application, it's expensive. That is the case. That's just to highlight the point that it varies. But for our AI for Health system, literally anyone can just sign up to the platform and start using it or testing it or whatever the case might be. Of course, there's some cost involved like servers and all that stuff, but it's not much different from the servers that is behind everything else we use, like the Zoom platform. So yeah, it varies from place to place. As far as the cost of the expensive cases like the drone, for example, I think that is where government subsidies might come in. So government already subsidize a lot of things in the agriculture sector, especially when it comes to fertilizers and all that stuff. They might also look at subsidizing ag-tech solutions where the need might be, but this is not applicable to all sectors. Some sectors are more than okay.
Okay, thanks, Darlington. We understand that now the cost implications would be in sector driven scenarios. So thanks for that, Gideon. I hope your question has been answered. We have 2 more questions and then we can end the session for today. Theodosia wants to know, I want to learn trends relating to education and the way forward. Trends relating to education forward. Professor Taylor, would you be able to handle that for us?
So trends relating to AI in education, like I'm trying to break that down. Can you help me understand better exactly what the question is being asked?
Okay, so trends relating to AI in education. Right now we can see, let me give typical examples. Right now we can see the use of chatbots in our educational space, I think, as teaching assistants and or grading students, making course recommendations and so on and so forth. And I think you even mentioned during one of your submissions about getting to play around with chatbots in terms of AI and stuff like that. So if there are similar trends within AI in education, and then what is the way forward for that? What do you foresee AI playing a role in our educational sector?
So I think for AI in the educational sector here in Ghana, a lot of that is going to be driven by the student body themselves and the demand of what it is that they're looking to learn based on the type of skills that the private sector is looking to hire for, or the public sector, because they seem to be the larger employer here in Ghana. And some of those trends have to break down beyond just saying AI and talk about specifically what type of technology are you using? Are you using some kind of biometric technology like facial recognition to make a payment? I mean, the QR code here is here, mobile money's here. In some places, they are able to allow payments to happen just with facial recognition. So when you're talking about that, it's like, break it down beyond just saying AI and talk about it in a specific field, and then see how is that being worked with across different academic fields of study. So if you're talking about facial recognition, then you probably want to pull in other areas like people that are working in the arts sector, working in philosophy, all those, what are they called? Liberal arts. The liberal arts to work together with those doing the technology so that they can have a holistic approach of how to move that technology forward on this continent. Because when we talk about something like facial recognition, just simply recognizing pictures, algorithm for Google had Black men labeled as apes. So, and this is true, you can Google that and find out yourself. So having Black people, African people work on these type of things to help demystify, as the word was used earlier, and understand that as people of African descent, we may look a little different. As people from a different group than those who actually create the technology, we need to have an input and a voice in how the technology is used. So that is how the trend is moving now for that particular area.
Sure, thanks, Professor Khallai. This brings us to the end of our discussion, but before we go, I just want to ask the final question within the Q&A, and that should just take us like 30 seconds each to speak on that, and then we can end the session for today. So Linda is asking, how can AI be made more attractive for the youth in Ghana? So just 30 seconds each from each of our panelists, and then we can go on. So I think Professor Khallai, you can start from there, and then we move on to Darlington and then Winifred.
Sure. My name is Khallai. So when it comes to how AI is used, just look at social media. Look at how you interact with Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and the type of videos that are recommended to you. That's all AI algorithm being recommended to you based on what you watch, what you do, what you spend your time on. So these are examples of how AI is used real-time, everyday setting that most people have some form of access to. And it will help people, it will meet people where they're at and get them excited about, well, how can we create something like this specifically for Africa instead of using technology that's coming to us from the West created by others when we can create something of our own here? How do we do that instead of just being consumers of technology?
Yeah, thanks for that input, Professor Taylor. Darlington, you could also give us your submission on that in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think as of today, AI is pretty attractive when it comes to Ghana. Any more attempt to make it more attractive will probably make AI too sexy. But I think as the growth happens within our AI ecosystem, if we scale more solutions, if more average Ghanaians can see AI all around them, can see it solve problems for them, they will definitely want to be part of that field.
Sure. So making AI more accessible and in the eyes of everyone. Yeah. So Winifred, your take on that as well.
Okay, for me, let's look at this from the fourth industrial revolution and the future of work. The future of work is going to be driven by data analytics, and artificial intelligence. And predominantly, a lot of the successes we are going to have going forward is going to be powered by artificial intelligence and data analytics. And that should tell you that you need to be part of that, and you need to have a seat at the tables, either as a professional, or if you are going into business to launch something, you're going to need AI and data analytics to drive and power that. So that is why you should be interested, because without that, you're not going to be part of the future. So to be part of the future, you need to be interested in it so that you're not left behind. Thank you.
Great. So you need to create that interest yourself, so that you can also be part of the history of AI in Ghana. One day when it's being talked about. Thank you very much to all my three panelists. I'm so grateful to have you here, and the discussion was really, really, really engaging and very informative. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all the great answers you provided to us. Thanks to all the attendees too for your inputs as well, asking relevant questions. And we hope this doesn't end here, but after here we can make the needed connections and also come together as one to actually promote the use of AI here in Ghana. So I think we're done for today, and we've even run out of time. I mean, we are more than 30 minutes out of our time schedule. So thank you all for being here, and we hope to see you in our next session of the PyData Ghana Discourse. So bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.